Thank you, everyone. I like when people indulge my little habits. It's wonderful to be here today. I've been listening as the conference has been going on, and I kept thinking, oh gosh, everyone's saying a lot of the things I might want to say. What am I going to talk about? I'm sure I'll think of something, counsellors generally do. I was presented with the opportunity to think about the themes for today: identity, belonging and change, and similar to the last conference, I wanted to put something together with the carer in mind, mainly with therapeutic experiences, obviously, but I hope to keep things a little light today. But in general, especially because this is the last presentation, as I talk through, I will be asking questions. Generally, it's to provoke something for you. Think about it, hold it. Maybe you take it and talk home with a partner, go and talk about it with a friend, come and talk to a counsellor. But a lot about the carer journey that has already been discussed today, how identity can change, where we feel we belong, things changing all the time, and us never really finding where we stand, are always something that has been part of the carer journey, and it's always something that carers grapple with, that we all grapple with as life changes as well. So, a very brief aim. I really want to take the time today to think about yourselves, think about the relationships that we have in our life, and really when I talk about those sorts of things with carers, the main things that come up is the division and the conflict. Either they're not getting something from someone that they want to, someone's not able to provide something, they want other family members to help and they're not helping. So let's explore those things. A little story. Some of the stories that have always been presented today have actually been great. But the story I had in mind was someone, de-identified of course, who said to me that they're caring for their child with a health issue, and it wasn't so common a health issue that everyone knew about it, but it's not like one of those rare ones that you say the health issue and people go, what's that, right? And they said, I'm trying to grapple with coming to terms with what this means for me. And they said they went to the online realm, which is where a lot of us go these days, and they found a group about the health condition, and they said, this is what my experience is. Now, we go to spaces, conferences, like-minded people, where you feel that sense of shared camaraderie, that sense of shared understanding. Someone says they're a carer, and you're a carer, and you go, they get it. I mean, if I had a penny every time a carer said to me, if you haven't been a carer, you don't understand. So they went to this group, they spoke a little bit about their stuff. I mean, hands up, who thinks that that went well? First response they said to me was, they said, you should feel grateful that that person's still in your life. How dare you talk as if that person is more disabled than they are? They heard, I can't believe you don't feel like this is the best thing that ever happened to you. And that's quite a hard one, especially when their intent was to get support, not judgment. And one of the things that people say to me in counselling that they fear so much is, I don't want someone to judge me. I don't want to talk about my experience and then I have someone hit me over the head with that. And we often hear, go to this space, it's nice, these people understand. But most people have a story where they went to someone that should have understood what was going on, and it didn't land. They couldn't hold that space. And so the good thing about that story is they eventually found their people and they got the support that they needed, which was great. But it highlights this idea of division and connection. And one thing that I really would have loved is to have the whole day with you to talk about some of these concepts, because I know in my heart of hearts that these are the things that carers struggle with the most. And connection is something that is often so in the face when you're doing the caring role, but often you feel so lonely in that space because not a lot of people understand. And a little plug for the presentation that I did at the last conference. It is on the Carers WA YouTube. So I have seen some familiar faces. If you were there, that presentation's there, and I'm sure this one will be too. But there I spoke about how carers stay motivated and engaged, and I walked away from that and thought, well, what about the division and the connection? What stops people from seeking the support in the first place? It wouldn't take very much for me to ask this audience and find a lot of difference, right? But it's also very easy to spot the commonalities that a lot of people might be carers. You're caring for dementia, disability, mental health, lots of difference. Well, do you understand what it's like for me? Do you understand what mental health is like versus what it's like for dementia? And you just take a step back and you go, but we're all carers. That's seemingly very easy to do, take a different perspective. Yet it's very hard when we're confronted with fatigue right in front of our face. And I think carers understand the external division a lot of the time. It's in your face. What I see is we don't pay much attention to the internal division that goes on inside us. Oh yeah, there's a mic there. There's a lot of stuff that happens internally that we don't get time nor space to think about. Plug for counselling again. I've put this lovely picture up there because for people that are interested, this amazing individual and researcher, Dr. Ian McGilchrist, has some very weighty books. But his first book, The Master and His Emissary, talks about the specializations of our brain hemispheres. And I really wish I had more time to go into it. But a while ago it was thought, this side of your brain does this side of your brain does this. The interesting thing is that the hemispheres are actually asymmetrical. They're not symmetrical. And they're specialised to do different things. One's specialised for looking very narrowly and very focused on things, very task-orientated, very categorical. This is what I'm looking at. This is what I can grasp. Whereas the other side is specialised for the big picture. So there's comments that we're getting very narrow in our focus. And I see that the time that we actually sit in the big picture, how we connect with things, why we connect with those things, people go, I don't have time for that. Or it's actually hard going into that space. I can barely contain the stress that I've got right now, and you want me to think about all these internal conflicts within me? Ugh. People do that. So I thought it would be a good idea to talk about the themes for today's conference. And I look at where the words come from. We've got a theme like identity. I thought, let's talk about how our identities are formed in your parents and childhood and you grow up. And I thought maybe it's a bit easier to just quickly look at what that's meant to mean, the etymology behind the word. And I looked at that and laughed, because when I looked it up, it said the same. The identity is the same. And for anyone that's thrust into a caring role, it's not like that, is it? Unless everything in your life stayed exactly the same in your experience. No stress, no shift in your perception of yourself and the other person. If that was the case for you, I would very much like to talk to you and have a good conversation. Belonging. Belonging's an interesting one because it sort of means to stretch out. And I think of things like attachment here, parent-child attachment, attachments to our friends. It's almost like when we're looking for a place to belong, we're stretching ourselves towards something. I want to be a part of that. And I found that very interesting looking at some of the other words around belonging, because it is about a yearning, right? A state of wanting to be part of something. And change, I think, explains itself. And I thought whoever came up with the themes for the conference was actually really brilliant, because all of these are required to try and stretch out to be somewhere in particular. We need to have an idea of what we're looking for. We need to have an identity in ourselves. Go, I'm a carer, I'm going to stretch out to connect to another caring group to find out where I belong. But in the process of doing that and being in that space with a bunch of other people, stuff changes. You're exposed to a bunch of different things. And it goes around and forth, very Escher-like. So here are some questions that I'd like you to ponder. How do you see others? Do you see others as fundamentally good, there to assist you in your time of need? Do you see others as frustrating, vexing, not there to support you? And how does those perspectives inform you about you? Because a lot of the time, I get someone coming to me and saying, I'm all good, I just want someone else to help a little more. And do you know what? They just don't want anything to do with it. And we explore and we explore. And generally, as a counsellor, I like to poke a little bit and say, what if you just go and ask that person? Ask that person, what's the bare minimum that they could do? And, well, that obviously doesn't always work out in a utopia. Some people go, I asked that person, and they said they could take mum for one night a month. One night a month that person now no longer has to hold that space. They can come back to that space, but they don't have to hold that space. But if our fundamental assumption about other people is that they are unhelpful, we're really not actually going to make that first step. Because the vision that we see is those people are unhelpful, right? And it's not like that's not informed by stuff, right? Generally, carers have opened themselves up and asked for help and been rebuffed. No, you can't do that. No, I'm not going to help you. Why would I do that? Oh, mum likes you better anyway, right? Constant rejection, I'm not going to help. So we form that identity that goes, okay, why bother asking? But the problem is that as much as we can think about ourselves changing over time in the caring role, sometimes we think that everyone else remains really static in their identity. That person's the same 1 week out, 1 year out, 10 years out. They're the same person that I always know. But if we've really changed and the caring's changed us, that's actually really hard to hold on to. I mean, it'll do us in the end. How others see you. What does the feedback and comments of others inform you about you? I mean, this is a really interesting one, because I had a conversation with someone that seemed to be confused by why people were so frustrated with them. They said, I'm a really nice person. I'm really caring, I'm really compassionate, and I don't understand, because if you're a caring and compassionate person, why is there no one to help me? We said, okay, well, have you asked people what they think of you? No, who does that? Weird counsellors ask you to do that, right? Ask that person, how do they see you? Family member comes aboard and they says, well, you always seem like you know it all. You always seem like you've got the answers, and what am I going to contribute? And they went, what? I don't know anything. I'm doing my damnedest to make sure that, my family member is cared for in the best of capacities. And it was all a miscommunication, a misunderstanding. And it seems really odd sometimes that the way we see ourselves and the way we see other people get so tangled and miscommunicated that we struggle to come to terms with things changing in life. It's very hard to talk about identity without talking about us stretching out into other spaces. And either us changing, people changing, the world changing. So if there's anything therapeutically that I could suggest to people, think about how you see yourself. Do you see yourself as being the glue that holds the community together? as other people have said today? Because it really is if I had $1 for every time I said to a carer, you know you're really valuable. And either something happens in their body where their lungs no longer function and they can't breathe, or they're partially paralysed but their tear ducts work very well. It surprises me, even after all this time, that people underestimate what they're doing because you are doing it every day. That left part of your brain that focuses on what's in front of you and go, that's all I'm doing, that's all I'm doing, that's all I'm doing, without taking that step back, going, I've actually done all this all these years. This is huge. Other people don't do this. Other carers might do this, but every second person isn't doing this. So how do I need to look at myself to hold that value? Because if I think I'm not valuable, I'm less than other people, it's going to be really hard trying to access all that value and feel really strong in ourselves. Belonging. Might seem a bit odd why I've put desire and longing here, but I've tried to look at that term belonging because I think sometimes we find a space and we feel like this is the space that I like, and then something changes. And then we go, well, maybe that's not my space anymore. The conversation around finances and telling people, yeah, Friday night's not the best night for me. So many carers' voices echo in my ears saying, people don't understand that when you start caring, you're not available for other people. You're not available to go out all the time and have fun. And funnily enough, other people, when they don't understand what that is, when they don't see that you're sacrificing something for your loved one, they go, oh, they're no fun anymore. Right? How others see you because you're sacrificing something. So when we think about this, it's, does your desire to be seen in a particular way influence what you do? I want to be seen as someone really caring and really compassionate. So it's really hard when I've got to have a difficult conversation with the service provider because that support worker is no longer coming. If I say that they've really disappointed me, am I still a caring and compassionate person? Now, to any of you, that's I think internally that's really hard to grapple with. Now, for those that are assertive or advocates who know, sometimes it's really important to go, oh, I keep forgetting this there, sorry. They go, this is what's going on for me. I need you to hear me. I need you to understand. This is what's happened. I need a new support worker. I'm not going to tell you why. You know why. You've got it on file. That is really challenging for people when they see themselves as someone caring and nurturing. Now, I don't think those things are mutually exclusive. I think we can still be assertive and strong and caring and compassionate. But often we don't mix those opposites. I'm the caring one. They're the assertive one. I'm glass half full. They're glass half empty. We do that a lot, don't we? We split ourselves into good, bad. But it's not mutually exclusive. Sometimes we have good days. Sometimes we have bad days. Does that mean that we're good on the good days and bad on the bad days? Or that we're human trying to muddle through? How do others connect with you? How do their desires impact you? Mum, I want dinner. I want dinner now. Sorry, I've just got to change your father's dressing here. I want dinner now. You probably get that people want stuff from you a lot, and it doesn't really go away. But if we look at that as a vexation, as a frustration, we often end up having a lot of conflict where we don't need to. And it was mentioned this morning around how we see the caring role, how we see it. Sometimes it's frustrating and we're at burnout and we can experience a lot of resentment And we just want to push the person away, but we've got to care for them. We've got to pull them in, and we want to push them away, and we've got to pull them in, and we get a bit tired of that dance sometimes. But as we've heard, there's things to do about that. But again, thinking about how others connect with us, what that relationship means to us, can be the whole difference between having a good day and a bad day. And if we recognise that we're in a space that's not gelling so well, maybe that indicates that we need to take that step back and see things from the bigger picture. Maybe that means we need a break. Maybe it means a lot of things. I mean, this one is a bit of a punch to the gut sometimes when you haven't really had much time to think about where you belong in yourself. Because it's all about the other person. And your time is taken up by that other person. Out of love, out of obligation, out of duty, out of happenstance, we're thrust into it, and we can start to dissolve at the edges. So what does that mean for us? What is our new identity? Do we just accept what other people want from us and say, this is who I am? Is it a daily thing? Is it a weekly thing? Maybe sometimes we need to spend a little bit of time with ourselves and going, well, where am I at today? Not, I'll think about that when they're okay, is often the one. Change. This is a big one, a hard one, because the words I hear from carers are, I need something to change, but I can't bear it to change. And other people changing, people losing their faculties, people having a deteriorating condition, someone on the road and in palliative care. We want more control over that than we probably have. And what that means to us can mean a lot of different things. I've already touched on how others see us changing when we enter the caring role. We're in the caring role for 10 years. When we look around to see people and we go, oh, where is everyone? And how they act around us changes very frequently too. And I think these are all things that carers struggle with, because you find yourself sort of constantly on the end of the treadmill, trying not to fall off. And you really want to catch up to someone to just have a coffee. You're sort of almost falling off. And you're reaching out, stretching, hey, I need to belong here for a second. And then a crisis happens and you fall off the treadmill and you cancel your coffee date. And then things change. Person says, oh, they're not here for me. I mean, if you find those people that are sticking around and saying, let's catch up for a cuppa, hold on to those people. And I think it's important to touch on all the changes that we don't see. And I think emotional expression is perhaps not our society's greatest strength, or it comes out in very odd ways. We don't often see people struggling and spend the time to go, what's going on? Because we don't have the capacity to hold that. In fact, more often than not, it's carers that do. I'm caring for people, but I'm also a carer for my friend, and I hold their emotional space. And do they hold that back for you? It's not really been like that, you know. I'm normally everyone else's listening ear. I don't have a listening ear myself. I say, well done for coming to counselling. I can be that listening ear for the time being. But isn't that interesting? All your resources going externally and not really noticing. I mean, it's funny how we go from muddling through to on the floor burnt out, isn't it? Just everything's going fine and then flump. And to me, it's a constant, I'm not checking in with myself and seeing what's changing. You know, the sort of, hey, everything's fine, to, oh, you know, gosh. I mean, even walking around the room, lots of energy in the morning, and then as you wade through the presentations, it's like, oh, it's getting really, really tiring. So, a very quick detour to the role of attention. Did anyone look at my little person with the megaphone? Interesting, right? Attention's great. It allows us to focus. I I really love the etymology of focus. It comes from the Latin hearth, fireplace. I forgot again. The home, right? The focus point of where we're looking at. Hopefully, what we pay attention to, where we're focusing our energy, is where our heart is. For many carers, that's someone they care for. And I remind people, you too, right? You need to focus on yourself as well. But I thought one thing that would be very interesting for you to think about is if another creature came from a solar system and observed us, what would it say we valued about what captivates our attention? That's the first thing I thought too. Our phones, right? Oh, these humans seem to like these little square devices in front of them. They must be amazing. I mean, there's countless pictures of people looking at their phones while, a fire happens in the background, right? So what does that say about where we want our attention to go? Again, we spend a lot of time caring for people and putting our attention there. That's great, until you realize that you're burnt out and you can't move forward anymore. So that says something about a lot of attention going in one way and not much attention coming in another way. So where do you want it to go? Where does it need to go? And mainly, who has the power to change that? Because often we give it up to someone else. When that person gets better, I can be okay. When that system changes, I can relax. When I finally do this, then... And we often put ourselves in these binds. All right, lastly, I know time's ticking. I see the giant red thing. I asked a carer because they gave me just a beautiful encapsulation. And I was thinking about the identity, the belonging, the change. So they said, I'm okay being me. Sometimes I need to be by myself and not all these identities for other people. I like me. I don't mind being myself to clear myself out. I thought, that's great. He said, you get lost being everything to other people. I long for a break. Yeah, I wouldn't know what I'd do with myself if I had one. And I sort of planted this earlier. At times I can't wait for a break. And yet I know I don't want this change. I can't fathom what it's going to be like without them. Right? So, my gift, how I see unpaid carers, empowering unpaid carers, navigating identity, belonging and change. The thing that I want to give all of you, and I get a lot out of my job, I see you all struggling to see yourselves, to see how valuable and important you are, no matter how that's defined, whether it's as a mother, a father, a carer, a child. Could be a lot of spaces, but you are the glue that holds all this together, figures or no figures, right? And that's something that I tell people. I see that. I hear how challenged you are when you're validated and affirmed for the good work you do. It's hard to hold. I hear the longing for recognition and the difficulty accepting it. And I hear how stretched you are, pulling themselves one way or another for the love of their loved ones. So I hear that. Oh, wrong button. And carers say they want things to change and they want things to stay the same. They know things change, and with change can bring great joy and great sorrow. And I say, look around, you're not alone. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Adam. I know we're pushing on time, but I would like to ask just one quick question because I think it's relatable for a lot of people. As a carer, I struggle with communicating to other carers the need to take care of themselves and have identities outside of caring. Some can become defensive or say it's not possible. How can you approach this and help prevent carer burnout?
I think a lot of the time people want to prevent something from happening that is going to happen. Sometimes you see the child falling off the bike, and by the time you get there, they're already on the ground. Often we want someone else to change, and we struggle with our feelings around watching them burn out when they don't want to take sound advice. So I would say, be true to yourself, acknowledge the concern that you see, but try not to force someone else to change. Hopefully that comes across in your love and your expression when you say, I see you burning out. Remember that you're part of this process. Full stop.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Adam.